Hello and welcome to Newsweek South Asia, your one-stop destination for in-depth analysis of security challenges, regional conflicts, and the evolving threat of terrorism. Let's take a look at the headlines first. Pakistan confirms India's Operation Sindoor hit key military targets. Indian Army turns up the heat on terrorists in freezing Jammu and Kashmir. And Baloch rights campaign goes international amid rising enforced disappearances. Pakistan has now publicly acknowledged what New Delhi asserted from the very outset, that India's Operation Sindoor delivered deep, precise strikes against Pakistan's military and terror-linked infrastructure. Months after the operation, Islamabad's own political leadership has confirmed that Indian missiles and drones struck some of Pakistan's most sensitive air bases, forcing the Pakistani establishment into panic, bunker drills, and ultimately a desperate rush for international mediation. The latest admissions exposed not just the scale of India's military reach, but also the fragility of Pakistan's deterrence narrative, one that collapsed within hours of India's calibrated response to the Pahalgam terror attack. A report.
In a rare and telling confession, Pakistan's Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister Ishaq Dar has admitted that Islamabad was compelled to seek a ceasefire after Indian strikes hit one of its critical air bases, Noor Khan in Rawalpindi, during Operation Sindoor. Dar acknowledged that the strikes forced Pakistan to reach out urgently to the United States and Saudi Arabia, effectively conceding that the situation had slipped beyond Islamabad's control. This admission punctures Pakistan's long-standing claims of deterrence and reveals the extent to which India's precision strikes rattle the country's military command structure.
It's good that they are slowly admitting now, but we in the Indian security establishment and Indian Army and Air Force knew all this, all from the day one, that 9 terror camps, 11 air bases of Pakistan, and 19 aircraft were damaged in India's offensive operation in Operation Sindoor, and Pakistan suffered a huge setback, and it has been basically clarified by most of the international experts on this topic. Yes.
Operation Sindoor was launched by Indian Armed Forces in the early hours of May 7 in response to the April 22nd terror attack in Pahalgam, Jammu and Kashmir, in which 26 civilians, most of them tourists, were killed. Within hours, Indian forces struck 9 terror hubs across Pakistan and Pakistan-occupied Kashmir, followed by calibrated attacks on at least 11 Pakistani Air Force installations. Among them was Noor Khan Air Base, one of Pakistan's most sensitive military compounds, housing Air Force operations and VIP transport units, and located between Rawalpindi, the military headquarters, and Islamabad, the political nerve center. Satellite imagery later revealed pinpoint damage to command and control facilities at the base, including destroyed trailer-mounted units believed to be central to Pakistan's air operations. Pakistan has attempted to downplay the impact of these strikes. Dar claimed that India deployed nearly 80 drones over a 36-hour period and that Pakistan intercepted 79 of them, with only one causing limited damage at Noor Khan Air Base. However, this narrative sharply contradicts visual evidence, satellite imagery, and Pakistan's own internal acknowledgements. Multiple civilian-shot videos circulating on social media showed large explosions and fires engulfing Noor Khan Air Base. Independent satellite images captured before and after the strikes confirm extensive damage across multiple facilities, including Rafiki, Sargodha, Jacobabad, and Khulari.
Ishaq Dar is a compulsive liar, but at the end of the day, he also tells the truth. When they say that 80 drones were fired by India and 79 they could hit and only one hit Noor Khan and some minor damage and some minor injuries, their own Sama TV website on 14th of August 2025 on their Independence Day published the names of 138 awardees for Gallantry Award who were killed in Operation Sindoor by Indian actions and they were awarded posthumously. Shaheed bola unhone unko. If 138 were awarded posthumously, that means minimum 400 to 500 people from the military had died during Operation Sindoor because of military action.
The scale of panic inside Pakistan's power corridors became even clearer with fresh remarks from President Asif Ali Zardari, who revealed that his military secretary had advised him to move into a bunker as Indian strikes intensified. Zardari claimed he refused, portraying the moment as one of personal defiance. However, Indian defense analysts have dismissed the statement as political theatre, pointing out that Pakistan's political leadership and military brass had in fact retreated to bunkers as India's missiles struck with precision.
Asif Ali Zardari is Mr. 10% of Pakistan. He has a black past. He is the most corrupt politician, and that's why they have put him in a corner and made him a president who has no say. Having said that, if Asif Ali Zardari's advisor is telling him to go into the bunker, even Asim Munir was inside the bunker when India attacked. It was nothing new. All their political leadership, all their military commanders were in the bunkers, only the soldiers were fighting it out and they got killed.
As Indian strikes dismantled terror camps and degraded Pakistan's air capabilities, Islamabad attempted retaliatory missile and drone attacks on Indian cities, all of which were effectively neutralized by India's air defense system. By May 10, after repeated tactical failures, Pakistan's Director General of Military Operations, Major General Asif Abdullah, placed a direct call to his Indian counterpart, Lieutenant General Rajiv Ghai, seeking de-escalation. Pakistan, however, violated the agreement within hours, reinforcing India's long-standing position that Islamabad cannot be trusted to honor its commitment. Operation Sindoor marks a defining shift in India's counter-terror doctrine, one that rejects restraint in the face of provocation and instead delivers swift, precise and disproportionate consequences. Pakistan's delayed admissions, contradictory narratives and frantic diplomatic outreach underscore a simple reality. India's military response not only dismantled terror infrastructure but also exposed the hollowness of Pakistan's deterrence claims. For New Delhi, the message is now firmly established. Terror will invite retaliation and denial will no longer shield the perpetrators.
Moving on. As allegations of enforced disappearances mount in Pakistan's Balochistan province, Baloch rights activists are taking their campaign beyond national borders. Protests in Europe are drawing attention to what campaigners describe as systematic pattern of state repression. Of particular concern is the reported targeting of Baloch women, a shift rights groups warn marks a dangerous escalation. Activists say international silence is enabling impunity. A report. The Free Balochistan movement has intensified its international advocacy in the form of protest against enforced disappearance of women in Balochistan by Pakistani security forces in the British city of Manchester. The demonstration drew attention to what activists say is a sharp escalation in state repression over the past month, marked by the abduction of Baloch women from their homes in different parts of Balochistan. Placards and banners accused Pakistani authorities of using enforced disappearances as a tool to suppress dissent, intimidate families, and dismantle political mobilization. Human rights groups say Pakistan's counter-insurgency strategy in Balochistan has long relied on arbitrary arrests, secret detentions, and extrajudicial killings, practices that have fostered fear and deep mistrust among the local population. But the growing focus on women, activists argue, represents a significant escalation, lowering social barriers that once offered limited protection and expanding the scope of state intimidation into civilian and domestic spaces.
For last, I think 2 weeks, Pakistan has forcibly disappeared around a dozen of Baluch women, and their location goes mysterious. Among those women, one is a mother of a 2-year child, and she is still, at the moment, she is pregnant. She was abducted in the daylight from her house by the Pakistan army. Until now, his loved ones and family, they don't know that where the woman is. Besides this, there are many other women that have been subjected to enforced disappearance by Pakistan. Pakistan is not enforcing.
Protesters say these disappearances cannot be viewed in isolation, arguing that they are rooted in decades of political and economic marginalization in Balochistan. Despite its vast natural wealth, the province remained Pakistan's most neglected region. More than 70% of its population is estimated to live below the poverty line. Access to clean water, education, and healthcare remains limited, while gas, coal, and mineral resources extracted from the region continue to fuel the national economy. Large-scale projects such as the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, celebrated in Islamabad as engines of growth, are accused of displacing local communities while offering little benefit to Baloch residents. But activists say economic deprivation tells one part of the story. They argue the real crisis lies in the human cost, enforced disappearances, extrajudicial killings, and collective punishments that have become part of daily life for many Baloch families.
The people of Balochistan are being subjected to genocide, enforced disappearance, worst kind of human rights violations, executions by both Pakistan and Iran. The reason is that because Balochistan is colonized, occupied by two occupiers or colonizers, which are called Iran and Pakistan. So the purpose of Iran and Pakistan of occupying Balochistan is not to improve the living standard of the people there, but to exploit the resources in Balochistan, to exploit the human resources there, to use the minerals from there, and to subject the people to suppression.
The Manchester demonstration follows a series of protests across Europe, including a rally on December 11th outside the International Court of Justice in The Hague, held on International Human Rights Day. There, Baloch activists accused Pakistan of decades-long human rights violations, arguing that enforced disappearances have become a governance tool rather than an exceptional security measure. Activists say repeated appeals to international legal and human rights institutions have so far failed to translate into accountability.
A nationwide struggle is for independent Balochistan from Pakistani occupation. For decades, international groups such as Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch have reported serious concerns in Balochistan, including restrictions on political freedom, limitations on expression, and cases of enforced disappearance. These reports highlight a pattern of actions by the Pakistani state that deeply affect the daily lives, dignity, and security of Baloch nation. Human rights are universal and unconditional. Every person is entitled to safety, justice, opportunity, and the freedom to speak without fear. Yet, many Baloch families continue to live under heavy surveillance, limited representation, and fear of reprisals for raising their voices. These realities show why international community must pay closer attention to the situation in Balochistan. The global community must call on Pakistan to uphold the international human rights obligations, ensuring transparency, accountability, and the protection of rights of Baloch nation.
Inside Balochistan, the consequences are devastating. Families of the disappeared often spend years searching for loved ones, moving between military checkpoints, courts, and police stations with little information and no legal recourse. While some detainees eventually resurface after prolonged secret detention, others are never seen again or are later found dead, reinforcing allegations of extrajudicial killings by state forces. One case repeatedly cited by activists is that of Mehjabeen Baloch, a university student and polio survivor. On May 29, 2025, Pakistani forces allegedly raided her home in Quetta and forcibly disappeared her. More than 7 months later, her whereabouts remain unknown, a case campaigners describe as emblematic of Pakistan's unchecked security operations in the province. Analysts say Islamabad's continued reliance on coercion rather than political dialogue or accountability has only deepened alienation in Balochistan. As Baloch activists internationalize their campaign, they insist the crisis can no longer be dismissed as an internal matter, warning that sustained silence risks normalizing enforced disappearance as state policy. This weekend, South Asia reflects on the passing of a leader who shaped Bangladesh's politics for over 3 decades. Begum Khalida Zia, the country's first woman prime minister, opposition icon, and a central figure in its democratic journey, died in Dhaka at the age of 80. Her death closes a defining chapter in Bangladesh's political history and raises questions about the future of her party, the BNP, and regional politics, including ties with India. Take a look.
Bangladesh's first female Prime Minister Khalida Zia died after a prolonged illness. She had been suffering from multiple health complications including advanced cirrhosis of the liver, diabetes, arthritis, and heart problems. A dominant and often polarizing figure, Khalida Zia rose to power in the 1990s, steering Bangladesh back to democracy after years of military rule. Over the decades, her rivalry with her arch political opponent defined the country's turbulent politics. Despite age and illness, Khalida Zia remained politically relevant till the very end. She had earlier indicated her intent to contest elections, the first since a mass uprising reshaped Bangladesh's political landscape. Her death now leaves a leadership vacuum within the BNP, even as her supporters remember her resilience and determination amid controversy and confrontation.
I think certainly she will be remembered as Bangladesh's first lady prime minister. I think the BNP, the legacy of the BNP, which was founded by her husband, President Ziaur Rahman, she carried on that legacy. She didn't let the BNP collapse, and she came in first as an ordinary member, then as vice chairman, then she became the head of BNP. And she's carried on the tradition, and now her son has taken over the baton. But in terms of politics, I think the situation has already been factored in, because it was known for a long time that at one point it was thought that she might be well enough to contest the elections, and then she might even become prime minister again. That was being talked about at one time because Tariq Rahman was not being allowed to come back to Dhaka. But I think the moment she fell, the latest bout of illness, the moment she fell ill, it was very clear that she would not be able to do much more, and so I think she has just passed away as a leader, and she will be remembered as a leader.
Khalida Zia's political legacy also shaped Bangladesh's foreign policy, particularly its complex relationship with India. While ties saw moments of tension during her tenures, there was also engagement, dialogue, and regional cooperation. Her meeting with Prime Minister Narendra Modi in 2015 marked one such moment, reflecting mutual recognition despite political differences. Prime Minister Modi has expressed condolences, saying he hoped her vision and legacy would continue to guide India and Bangladesh relations.
Prime Minister Modi and Begum Zia had met in 2015 when Prime Minister Modi's first visit to Bangladesh. And throughout all her tenures, Begum Khaleda Zia played a very significant role in enhancing Bangladesh's international profile, whether it was in terms of bolstering regional cooperation through SAARC or building ties with other countries, building ties with the Southeast Asian region, for instance, with her Look East policy. She was a leader who believed that Bangladesh must get her rightful place in the international system. We must remember here that it was in her first tenure in 1991 when she became Prime Minister, after a prolonged period of military rule when democracy returned to the country.
As Bangladesh looks ahead, Khaleda Zia's passing invites reflection on her role in restoring democracy, her stewardship of the BNP, and her impact on regional politics. Yet Khaleda Zia's legacy remains deeply contested. Critics argue that her years in power intensified political polarization, weakened institutions, and entrenched confrontational politics that continue to haunt Bangladesh today. Her leadership style, marked by street politics and prolonged standoffs, often stalled governance and reform. Loved by supporters and questioned by critics, Begum Khaleda Zia leaves behind a legacy that continues to divide opinion, a reminder that in Bangladesh's turbulent politics, even history's most powerful leaders are remembered through both achievement and controversy.
As Pakistan-backed terror networks attempt to recalibrate their strategy under the cover of winter, Indian security forces are rewriting the rules of counter-terror operations. During Chilai Kalan, Jammu and Kashmir's harshest winter phase, the Indian Army has intensified operations in the Jammu region, signaling that adverse weather conditions will no longer offer terrorists a tactical pause. Take a look.
During Chilai Kalan, the 40-day sub-zero winter period from December 21 to January 31st, the Indian Army has stepped up counter-terrorism operations across Kishtwar and Doda districts of Jammu and Kashmir. Defense sources say army units have expanded their operational footprint into higher, snowbound and traditionally inaccessible areas, zones historically exploited by Pakistan-sponsored terrorists, to aid surveillance during winter. According to assessments by multiple intelligence agencies, around 30 to 25 Pakistani terrorists are currently active in the Jammu region, a significant concentration given the terrain and seasonal constraints.
Operations against terrorists in hideouts on these mountains is quite difficult, as we have seen, wherein we lost DSP also, and we lost one Lieutenant Colonel and a Major in operations in Kashmir. When they tried to storm the terrorists who were up in the hills, who had taken up positions over there. So therefore, the strategy was to let them be there and contain them up and not allow them to come down to operate or to have or create any damage to the civilians around in the villages down in the plains, and of course even in the Doda city or the Kishtwar and other places.
Army patrols are conducting regular movements along high-altitude ridgelines, forest belts and valleys, ensuring terrorists are denied seasonal shelter. Officials describe the approach as a decisive break from earlier winter slowdowns, aimed at maintaining year-round operational momentum. A defining feature of this winter offensive is the Army's integrated intelligence-driven approach. The Indian Army is leading synchronized operations involving the Jammu and Kashmir Police, Central Reserve Police Force, Special Operations Group, Civil Administration, Forest Guards and Village Defense Guards. Officials say intelligence from multiple agencies is collated, cross-verified and synthesized to generate precise movement and hideout patterns. Once validated, joint operations are launched within hours, significantly reducing response time and eliminating operational overlaps. This coordination has strengthened area domination and improved tactical precision, particularly in remote, high-altitude zones. Security agencies report that terrorists hiding in these regions have attempted to coerce or intimidate local villagers for food and shelter. But officials emphasize a major shift on the ground. Local support networks and overground worker structures have sharply declined. With tighter surveillance in populated belts and sustained pressure in forested zones, terrorists have been pushed into isolation, disrupting logistics, communications, and the ability to plan coordinated attacks. The Army's winter operations follow a clear doctrinal cycle: surveillance, swift operations, sustained surveillance, ensuring cleared areas remain under constant watch.
Armed forces and have taken up that ensuring to deny the terrorists this infrastructure that Pakistan was using. One is that the satellite phones and all that they were using, they have stopped that because of the danger that moment they use a mobile or a satellite phone, that location is tracked by the armed forces and immediately drones are sent over to that location. Once this happens, it is for sure that those terrorists will be eliminated soon. So for this reason, what has happened is that Pakistan has now asked these people not to use their mobiles or even their satellite phones, because they were using those Chinese satellite phones and the Chinese satellites to pass on messages between ISI and the terrorists over here.
To sustain operations in extreme conditions, the Indian Army has deployed specialized winter warfare subunits across key sectors in Jammu region. These troops are trained in high-altitude survival, snow navigation, avalanche response, and snow combat, allowing uninterrupted operations despite heavy snowfall and limited visibility. Security forces are simultaneously operating across valleys, mid-altitude belts, and high ridges, creating overlapping control zones and denying terrorists any movement corridors. As snow continues to blanket Kishtwar and Doda, the Indian Army's expanded winter presence sends a clear message: weather will no longer shield Pakistan-sponsored terrorism. Every ridge, every valley, and every snowbound slope remains under surveillance, reinforcing India's resolve to neutralize terror threats without seasonal pauses, without tactical concessions.
And with that, we come to the end of this edition of Newsweek South Asia. We'll be back next week with more news, views, and analysis from the subcontinent. Meanwhile, do keep writing to us at nwsa@anin.com. This is Shivangi Mishra signing off on behalf of our entire team of Newsweek South Asia. Goodbye and take care.